Hey everyone, picture this. You have exactly 24 hours left to live, and you know the exact minute it's going to end. What would you do? How would you spend those final moments? Today, we're diving into the final day of Lester Bauer, a man who spent over 30 years on death row before his execution in 2015. His last 24 hours reveal something absolutely fascinating about human nature when facing the ultimate deadline. Trust me, what happened during those final hours will completely change how you think about life and death. Let's get into it. The man behind the headlines. So, who exactly was Lester Bauer? This 67-year-old man had been living on Texas death row since 1984. That's 31 years of knowing exactly how his story would end. Can you imagine? Most of us can't even plan what we're having for dinner tomorrow. Bauer was convicted for the 1983 murders of 4 men at a small airplane hangar in Texas. However, what's fascinating is that throughout those 3 decades, he maintained his innocence. Whether you believe him or not, one thing's certain. He faced his final day with a composure that shocked everyone who witnessed it. The statistics are staggering. Only 3 of death row inmates spend more than 20 years before execution. Bauer was among the rare few who experienced this prolonged wait. But how does someone mentally prepare for 31 years of countdowns? June 3rd, 2015, 6 a.m. sharp. This wasn't just another morning on death row. This was the morning. Prison guards approached Bauer's cell with a different energy. Everyone knew what day it was. Here's something most people don't know. Death row inmates on their execution day get moved to a special holding cell just 50 feet from the execution chamber. Imagine walking that distance, knowing you'll never walk back. The psychological weight must be absolutely crushing. Bauer's first request? He wanted to shower and put on clean clothes. Such a simple human desire when facing the unthinkable. But what came next reveals the extraordinary mental state of a man with hours to live. 8 a.m. The final breakfast of the day. The next part is where things start to become truly intriguing. The 2 cheeseburgers, French fries, and a Coke that Bauer requested for his last dinner were fairly modest in their request. It's just comfort food, no lobster, no costly steaks, nothing fancy. One inmate requested 29 different dishes, including lobster tail and premium ice cream, while another inmate asked for a single olive pit. This is in comparison to other infamous items that were requested during the final dinner. The phrase, "You mean a pit from an olive?" Either that is the most zen experience that has ever been had, or the person truly didn't give this any thought. Still, Bauer, at a leisurely pace, he savored each mouthful. It was observed by the guards that he appeared nearly calm. In what way is that even conceivable? The term death acceptance is used by psychologists to describe this phenomenon, which refers to a mental state in which the inevitability of death becomes surprisingly soothing. I'd really appreciate it if you could click the like button if you consider this as fascinating as I do. This is a great way to help the channel develop, and these honest stories deserve to be heard. In addition, be sure to subscribe to this series and ring the notification bell. I can assure you that you won't want to miss the next installment. Arrivals and closing remarks at 12 o'clock. As the afternoon progressed, Bauer received his last guests, a journalist who had been covering his case for more than a decade, his spiritual counselor, and a few family members were also present, which was a surprising development. This was a wonderful event that they witnessed. Bauer spent his time consoling other people, even though he could have easily broken down or raged against his destiny. His sister was told not to cry, his spiritual advisor was reassured that he was prepared, and he even praised the guards for treating him with dignity throughout his lengthy stay in the facility. On death row, inmates who have been there for a long time frequently exhibit this behavior. 67% of offenders who have been on death row for more than 20 years develop what researchers refer to as institutional acceptance. This means that they create a sense of gratitude for even the smallest acts of compassion performed during their final hours. To add insult to injury, here is the unexpected turn of events. The unexpected phone call arrived at 4 o'clock. Bauer received the news that his legal team was going to file one last appeal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which was just 2 hours before his own scheduled execution. This would evoke feelings of hope, desperation, and frenzied energy in most individuals. The answer from Bauer? In a composed manner, he communicated to his attorney, "I do appreciate everything you've done, but I'm ready to go." Take that into consideration for a moment. After figuratively and physically giving up hope for survival, this man discovered serenity in accepting his situation. In terms of its approach to death, it is largely Buddhist in nature. Afterwards, the guards stated that in their combined 40 years of experience, they had never witnessed anything comparable to it. Not even an hour had passed before the appeal was turned down, but Bauer appeared almost relieved. There was no longer any uncertainty. Final hour of preparation, 6 p.m. evening. The final holding facility was where Bauer was transferred to when the time for his execution in Texas, which was 6 p.m., drew near. Only one door separates this area from the execution room, which is where condemned prisoners spend their final hour of life while they are being executed. A final explanation of the method was provided by the warden who arrived. Bauer listened with patience, asked a few practical questions regarding the procedure, and then said something that startled everyone in the room. "Thank you for making this as easy as possible." Praying and meditating for the last 30 minutes of his life was his habit. There will be no dramatic outbursts or last-minute confessions. Merely peaceful meditation will be allowed. After some time had passed, the chaplain referred to it as the most peaceful final hour he had ever seen. 6:47 p.m. The absolute last moments. Lester Bauer was pronounced dead at precisely 6:47 o'clock in the evening. Not only did he assert his innocence, but he also expressed forgiveness to those who had offended him and expressed gratitude to those who had shown him kindness. His final speech was brief but powerful. However, what is truly surprising is that not a single incident occurred throughout his execution. There are no objections from Bauer, problems, or drama being placed. Following 31 years of appeals, legal fights, and waiting, it came to a conclusion in the same placid manner that he had spent his last day. There was an unexpected sense of closure that the witnesses, including the families of his claimed victims, recounted experiencing later on. This was not out of a desire for vengeance, rather it was due to the dignity that Bauer showed in his final hours before his death. From the final 24 hours of Lester Bauer's life, what can we take away? How he confronted death teaches us something deep about the human capacity for resilience and acceptance, regardless of whether he was involved in the crime or not. Even in the most difficult times of our lives, he demonstrated that we can choose dignity over despair and serenity over panic. His serenity in the face of an inevitable death makes the problems that we experience daily appear, well, a little bit doable, don't you think? I have a question for you. Do you believe that the 31 years that he spent on death row was a punishment that was harsh and unusual, or that justice was served? What actions would you take if you were aware that you had only 24 hours left? Please comment below and let me know what you think. I will read each and every one of them. This video is a deep dive into true crime stories that illustrate the complexity of human nature. If you found this story to be moving, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for future investigations into these stories. The next week, we will be covering the final 24 hours of Carlton Michael Gary's life. And believe me when I say that his narrative takes a remarkable and unexpected turn that will leave you dumbfounded. To ensure you don't miss out, a link is provided in the description.